to show up in people's lives. Now, the first week we talked about how showing up means that wherever I am, people are welcome. In other words, I have a lifestyle where when I show up, I make place and space for people to be themselves and feel like I want them to be around, to feel like they're valuable. Last week we talked about how the Great Commission that Jesus gave us is about connection. It's about taking two people that are separate and helping to bring them together. And there's really 5 things that we can do, that we can promise to anybody that will help that happen. I can promise that I will love Jesus passionately, because without that I've got nothing to offer you. I can promise to love you unconditionally. You should always feel like you can be yourself around me. I promise to never try to stalk you or sell you something. I promise I will always try to help you, that I will actively look for ways I can serve. And then I can promise you that whenever the time is right, I will be ready to tell you about my friend Jesus. The Great Commission is a pretty awesome responsibility, though, that God has given us, right? That He wants to use us to help people have a relationship with Him. That He wants to help shape people's destiny. And He's using us and our connections and our friendships and our relationships to be able to do that. I don't know about you, but there's a little bit of pressure on me when I understand that right. That this is a significant thing that I've been entrusted to. That this is a big deal. That I get to be a part of this. And it can kind of feel like wrestling a giant alone. At least that's what someone told me the other day. It's like, this is so big, it's like wrestling a giant alone. And that was great that they shared that with me, because I actually have a little bit of experience about wrestling giants. In high school, when you wrestle, you tend to wrestle in weight classes so that you don't have somebody that is enormously larger or smaller than you when you're wrestling. Well, the way that it happened my junior year of high school is that I ended up wrestling in the heavyweight division. Now, I may be there now, but in high school I was not close to the heavyweight division. I was about 20 pounds underneath where the heavyweight division was supposed to be. And so I was literally wrestling against people that were weighing almost 100 pounds more than me. They were all taller than me, stronger than me, uglier than me. Well, most of them were uglier than me. I mean, there were people that were getting Division I scholarships to play football on the offensive and defensive line that I had to wrestle. So I knew something about wrestling giants. And so I understand when somebody says that there's pressure, then this feels like sometimes, because this is what it's like. Like when you're wrestling somebody that's that much bigger than you, you know right off the bat that you cannot carry their weight. If they land on top of you, you might not be able to stand up underneath it. There is a lot of pressure to carry it, and you know you can't do it by yourself. There's too much weight to carry. And when you're caring for people that are hurt, that are broken, that have things in their life that you don't even know how to begin to come alongside them about, it can feel that way too. Like you'll see them and you see what they're going through and you're like, I can't carry that alone. There's no way that I'm going to be able to get through that. And there's a lot of weight on that, because like for me, being the heavyweight meant that I was the last match every time. And so sometimes our team's fate depended on whether I could win or lose this match. Like I had to stay off my back. I had to figure out a way to win. I had to do whatever I could, or else everyone on my team was going to lose too. And it can feel that way sometimes when we're dealing with people that God's asked us to go and show up for. Because in the back of our minds, if we really get this right, sometimes we're wondering, look, if I screw this up, like if I say the wrong thing, if I offend them, if I just become an incredibly bad example, I could do something that could literally screw up this person's fate. Like I could mess up their destiny. At least that's what I'm thinking in the back of my head as I'm about to approach these situations. And that's a lot to carry. Another thing about wrestling giants alone is you realize really quickly it's going to take everything you have. It will require everything you've got to try and get out of this. Like you're going to have to use all of your wits to come up with a strategy to not get smushed. You're You're going to have to use all of your energy and all of your strength to try and be faster or quicker or stronger to just get through something. It's going to take all of your heart, because there's going to be moments when you're going to want to give up. That moment might be when you look across the mat and see the person towering over you, or you feel their breath on the top of your head as they look down at you. But you're going to have to use everything you've got to get through the next 6 minutes. At least you hope it's 6 minutes. When you're going to care for people and show up for them, it's the same way. The only way you connect is when you pour your life out for them. I don't know if you've realized this, but when you pour your life out, when you give everything you've got, it's exhausting. You just use everything until you're spent. And you will find moments when you realize, I have nothing left to give. And so you might look up from that moment and say, like, am I really up to this? Like, should I even be involved in this? Because I don't know what to do when I'm empty, and I don't know where to go to get filled back up once I've poured everything out. It can be overwhelming to wrestle a giant alone. And really the last thing about wrestling giants, that's a lesson that I've carried with me from that time, is that if you're going to wrestle a giant alone, you're going to be uncomfortable. It might be when you look across and see them. It might be when they start to squeeze you tighter than you've ever wanted to be held by another person. It could be when they put all of their weight on top of you and you feel like you're suffocating. It could be when you're trying to do a move and they laugh at you. It could be any kind of thing, but you are going to be uncomfortable. You will have felt better at some other moment than you will in the middle of wrestling the giant. If you're not used to connecting with other people, it can feel the same way. Because it's more comfortable to not do it than it is to do it. For some of you, it's uncomfortable because your lives are so busy. You're uncomfortably full already. Like your life is the waistband on Thanksgiving Day after dinner. There's no room for anything else. Because you've got to get kids to soccer practice over here and gymnastics over there. You've got to work late. At the same time, you've got to help your kids finish their schoolwork. You've got to clean the house, help your parents that are struggling with something else. Your neighbors want to borrow some sugar. The dog just made a mess in the house. And you've still got all these other things that you want to do that you haven't even started to think about doing. And oh yeah, groceries need to get bought too. And how in the world are you going to squeeze out and carve out enough space to start connecting with anybody else? It's just uncomfortable. Or maybe it's uncomfortable because to go and talk to somebody else is just too awkward. You don't know what to say. You don't even know how to say hi. And you go up to them and you don't know how to make small talk. You don't know how to make a connection. They're going to worried about how your hair looks or what your clothes look like or what your feet smell like. All different things. And you're so anxious about it that instead of hyping yourself up, you're actually making yourself feel worse and worse and worse about it before it even happens, to the point that you're just going to avoid it because it's too uncomfortable. Paul writes to the church in Ephesus in Ephesians chapter 4. He's writing from prison, and he's writing to encourage people. He's writing through this whole letter to encourage them that if they can keep their focus on the right things, if they can look at life the right way, if they can have their eyes turned in the right direction, then they can be effective in this mission that God's called them to, even from prison. And basically he starts out by going through all of the things that God has done in this mission that we have, and he basically is saying what we've been saying so far. Like, look, there is pressure here, right? There are giants to wrestle, and it feels like it is impossible to face it alone. And so he gets to chapter 4, and this is what he says. So don't face it alone. Don't do this by yourself. It's like the boxes you go to pick up when you buy something that are too heavy for one person, and they've got the two people on the box lifting it together. That's what he says this is like. He says to us, as a prisoner for the Lord, I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you've received. Now, the calling you've received is this great commission we talked about last week to, as you go, make disciples. As you go, care for people, connect with people, point them to Jesus. It's got eternal significance. It is a meaningful, purposeful way of living, but it also is a significant thing. And so don't take it for granted, but live a life worthy of it. Anytime something is given to you that's valuable, anytime a crucial task is handed over to you, you have to live a life worthy of what you've been given. When COVID hit, we bought our son Elijah a Chromebook so that he could do his work when he's at home. And it wasn't just that we gave it to him, but we gave it to him and told him, look, you have to live worthy in order to keep this Chromebook. So I don't want to see it on the ground where I'm going to step on it with my big feet. I don't want to find it in weird places where you've lost it. I don't want you to get so caught up in that you're not doing your chores or being active or engaging with other people. And if you don't do those sorts of things, then you will no longer have the Chromebook because you're not living worthy of what you've been given. We too, because we've been given something so valuable in this mission, have to live worthy of what we've been given. And so how do we live worthy of this? Paul tells us, be humble, be gentle, be patient, bearing with one another in love. Now, I don't know about you, but if you've noticed, there's a trend in all of those things. These aren't qualities that you develop or exercise by yourself. You need other people in order to do this. Like if I'm going to be humble, if I'm going to think of myself as I ought to, I have to do that in relation to other people. If I'm going to be gentle, I have to be gentle to someone else. If I'm going to bear with someone else in love, there has to be someone else that I can bear with in love. And if I'm going to be patient, let's be honest, I don't usually need a lot of patience if I'm by myself. I need patience for the people that I'm with who aren't moving fast enough to get us out on time, who aren't doing the things I've asked them to do when I've asked them to do it. That's when I need patience, when somebody else is there, when I'm not alone. And so because I need to do these things together, I have to make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. If I'm supposed to do these things, if I'm supposed to live worthy by being in proximity to other people, God has even taken care of who I need to be in proximity with. I keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace with who? With this crazy, messy, dirty, confusing, beautiful, awesome group of people called the church. For there is one body, the church. One Spirit, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who binds us together. The pressure that we feel to do this mission God's given us is released and spread out and dispersed when we realize that we share this mission together, when we are united in it. We need each other. There is no way to live this Christian life alone. The New Testament has no concept of a person who is so desperately in love with Jesus, so close to Jesus, but yet so far from the church. You need the local church, and the local church needs you. If you want to grow in your faith, if you want to be stronger in your relationship to Jesus, in other words, if you want to be able to stand up to the weight that you have to carry, you need the church to be able to do it. We do it together. You pick up one side of the box, I pick up the other side of the box, and we carry it together. If it's too heavy for 2 of us, bring 4 of us, 6 of us, 8 of us. We do it together. The church helps to lift the load. When you don't know what you're going to do because you've poured everything out, the church comes alongside to refill you. The church supports each other. When I say the church, I'm not talking about a building or an institution. It's all of us people who come together in the name of Jesus and say, we are in this thing, whatever it is, for each other. Because Jesus has called us to be together. And so we gather together to support each other. And we pour our lives out for others. And then the church comes and pours life back into us, through encouraging us, through lifting us to God in prayer, by showing us what to do with our lives, by helping us to see that there are things that God has given us that we can use to strengthen our spirit and our heart, like praying together, reading scripture together, learning about God together, having conversations with each other where we open up beyond what just is normal to what's really going on in our hearts. John Wesley called these things means of grace. In other words, they are the ways that we receive grace in our lives, and that grace supports us and uplifts us and fills us back up when we've poured ourselves out. And once we're filled back up, then we can pour ourselves out again. It helps us when we feel anxious and unstable, when we're facing chaotic circumstances, that together we can lift our eyes to Jesus and find stability no matter what we're facing. And when you're uncomfortable connecting with each other in these anxious, unstable times, well, the church shows you how to do it. You get welcomed in. No matter where you're from or what you're like, you are here to belong, and it teaches you how to help others belong. You look around and see people that are different at you, different educations, different political leanings, different ethnicities, different cultures, different hairstyles, all this stuff, and yet you are still family. And when things get hard and messy and there's failure, when things break down in your life or someone else's life, the church comes around those people and you see what it looks like to not be abandoned, to be loyal in the midst of whatever it is you're going through. The church will teach you, it will show you how to connect with others. So that from the whole body, joined and held together by every supporting ligament, it grows and builds itself up in love as each part does its work. You see, when you're really about showing up, you never show up alone. Billy Graham described it like coals in a fire. When they cling together, they keep the flame aglow, but when they separate, they die out. That's why it is so important for you and I, who are committed to showing up for people, committed to caring for them, committed to helping them see that they are loved and valuable. We have to be committed to connecting to each other too. And you can do this all kinds of ways. Don't let the current circumstances you find yourself in be an excuse for not connecting. You can do it in person. You can do it on the phone. You've got social media and FaceTime and all kinds of different things you can do to stay in touch with each other, to stay a part of the church. And then when you do that, you realize that whenever you go somewhere, whenever you show up, you're never alone. You've got this group of people on the same mission as you that have got your back. They are following the same path and the same Lord, and they are there to lift you up and to support you and to pick you up when you fall and to come alongside you when you're hurt. They are cheering you on. And when you have a team cheering you on when you're ready to wrestle a giant, man, that'll fire you up and it'll keep you moving when you'd rather run away. And if that's not enough, this group of people that's cheering you on and supporting you, they aren't just getting your back from the sidelines. They can come out with you. That's right. You can recruit someone to show up with you when you got to show up somewhere. And then see what happens when somebody that you care about and somebody else that you know that loves Jesus gets together, and just watch what happens. You will be amazed at what Jesus can do when you just are willing to be present. I had a friend that was showing up for a woman in our community several years ago. It's been quite a while now, but she was doing this, and she was hoping to bring food by to where she was living and her place of business, helping to support what was going on there. And this woman she was describing she sounded kind of quirky but fun, but very different than me, a lot older than I am, and a lot of different things going on in her life that would make it hard for me to feel comfortable going up and talking to her. Until one day I got forced to. Because my friend said, hey, I can't make this delivery today, so I told them that you were going to bring it by. I got voluntold, is what happened. And so that's what I did. I took some food, I dropped it off, said hi to the people that were working there. I talked to this woman for a minute, and all the same things that I thought before were true. Different than me, living differently, different age, weird ways to try and connect, but nice enough. And then I left. And then a couple weeks later, I got asked to go do it again. And then a couple weeks later, I went with my friend there again. And on we went. This went on for a couple of months until one day this woman showed up at church on Sunday morning. And then other people started to gather around her and get to know her and spend some time with her. And then I started taking not just food to them, but saying, hey, do you want to go out and eat with my family? And a little bit more time passed, and then Jesus started to really get a hold of her. And he radically transformed her life. And he radically brought healing to things that were broken in her life and diseases that she had. And all kinds of miraculous stuff happened to her. And she's stuck around ever since. She's part of our leaders here in our church now. And she's a leader in our church because people were willing together to show up. It wasn't just me. I'm not the hero of the story, but it was my friend who introduced me to her. And then when she showed up, the others that gathered around her to get to know her, to make her feel welcome. And now here's the kicker. It's gone full circle. Because not only is she doing that for other people, but me, the one that I thought this is going to be weird and awkward and I don't know if I want to do it, she is a friend of mine who I know prays for me every single day and lifts me up and encourages me and pushes me forward. That's the beauty of how the church works when it's working together. That's what Jesus is inviting all of us to be a part of. So here's the challenge for this week. Keep your names. See them. Pray for them. Commit to showing up, to caring for them. No strings attached. But then ask yourself, how can you use this church to help live worthy of the calling you've received? Do you need some support or encouragement? Do you need to grow stronger? Do you need to find a way to show up with other people? Take advantage of what God has given you to live worthy of the calling you've received. And the flip side of that is the other thing you have to ask yourself. Am I committed to helping others live worthy of the calling they've received too? I will tell you this. Together, nothing can be impossible. Because not only do you and I show up together, we show up in the name and power of Christ. One body, one faith, one Lord, one God. And He has got it all. Let's pray. Father, I just ask that today you would come and speak to us. Thank you for making sure that when we go to do these things that mean so much, we don't go alone. Remind us about that. Help us to focus in on how we can be committed to each other as we are committed to showing up for other people. Because when we show up, we never show up alone. Help us to find courage and strength and encouragement in each other. Help us to be the church you've called us to be. Help us to live worthy of the calling we've received. Thank you for trusting us with it. We ask this in your name.